X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast, where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm the bad boy of X-Men podcasting, Zach Jenkins. How are we doing, Adam?
I'm great. I've got my hair as high as it possibly can go. I feel like I've made this joke before, but
listen, we've done a Legion-based episode before. We've done at least one Legion-based episode where we talked about the podcast for this Legion quest that I did with Matt Sibley a while ago that died when we both realized, oh my gosh, television seasons have an off season? No, we're not doing a podcast that long.
Sometimes very long off seasons that may last years.
Sometimes you get so distracted by the off season and then your mom's cable runs out and you don't watch FX and then it's like, oh man, I probably have to rewatch the whole show to catch up on season 3. I've started season 3 like 3 times.
Oh, you've never finished Legion. I forgot.
I've never finished Legion. Listen, I feel like the fight between Legion and the Shadow King at the end of season 2 was kind of like, people, when I say fight, I mean it's an animated mind fight set to them both singing Behind Blue Eyes by The Who. You might know it from Behind Blue Eyes from Limp Bizkit. If you grew up in a certain amount of the early 2000s, that's a painful one. That's how I first got to know about that song.
All right, no judgment. I know I laughed, but okay.
Adam, you also were not alive in 1970 when the Who's Next came out.
No, of course not. I'm just saying that, it's so funny how we learn about things. You know what I mean?
I was like, this is an oddly good song for Fred.
Yeah.
What's Fred Durst doing with this? I was like,
wow.
Oh, no, that's Pete Townsend.
That Billy Corgan, what is this beautiful song, Landslide, he's written? These are sad moments in a young man's life when we learn these things.
Annie, are you okay? I feel like Alien Ant Farm was asking the right questions.
Well, we're going to ask the right questions this week because, as we hinted, we are doing a Legion-centric episode this week. And who do we have to thank?
We have to thank Patreon supporter. That's what's important. Is really the Patreon.
That's true.
Sukakari 1230.
Oh,
I want to assume that's an Xbox gamer tag.
I don't know, but are there that many other Sukaharis? I don't think people
normally put like numeric characters in birth certificate names.
Unless you're like one of Grimes' children,
Yeah, man, you remember early. We've talked about on this podcast many a time, haven't we? The early pandemic period where Elon Musk and Grimes were having a bad marriage off between Amanda Palmer and Neil Gaiman.
I'm sure it's been mentioned, if not here, somewhere
I think about
offline.
those that early pandemic month a lot. It was Tiger King. It was them fighting. It was all of us saying, well, do we need masks? We're not sure. And the government's saying, we're not sure right now. Anyway, we were terrified that the air could kill us because it could.
We've been defined by this moment. So
in ways that we have yet to uncover.
It's true. It's true. We are going back to the Halcyon days of 2013 to talk about X-Men Legacy 1 through 6. This is volume 2. Prodigal.
So this is written by Cy Spurrier.
Mm-hmm.
Art duties are split on these issues. Tengen Hut does most of them, with Jorge Molina doing a couple in the middle. First thing you have to address when you talk about this series, and I feel so strongly about this. Those Mike Del Mundo covers, man.
Those Mike Del Mundo covers.
Mike Del Mundo.
Posters. I want a poster of everyone. I want to plaster the inside of my, my
Adam, I have great news for you about Mike Del Mundo's e-commerce strategy.
Yes. He likes to sell posters.
Mike Del Mundo sells a lot of things. It just relaunched this is not a paid advertisement by Mike Del Mundo, but Mike, give us a call. I'm fine to hawk your web store for a shockingly low rate.
Love it. Love it.
I subscribe to Mike Del Mundo's newsletter, the one that's not Three Worlds, Three Moods.
Yeah, which of
I also
these
subscribe
is
to Three Worlds, Three Moods, which is
the biggest scam? I love
I
it.
don't know. Hold on. I do actually have a large comic here.
Yes, one
from
large
them.
comic for like what, 18 months of fun, 24 months of.
It was like I spent like
Substack fun.
$45, and then I wasn't going to do it for a second year, and then I saw that they had Steve Epting drawing mushrooms, and I was like, "Ah, you got me,
You got him with the mushrooms,
Johnny. You got me again."
Listen, far be it from me to negatively describe an independent publishing entity by some of our favorite people. So,
honestly, love everybody who's involved in
exactly.
Three Moods.
Keep getting them dollars and keep making whatever weird guidebooks you're making, and behind
really,
the
they just want to make an RPG, but they don't have any idea on what rules to do or how to make it. I'm fascinated by Three Worlds, Three Moons.
Yeah.
That's folks who aren't that plugged in. That is Jonathan Hickman, Mike Del Mundo, and Mike Huddleston's Substack project that started with a bunch of Substack grant money. And now it's, how sometimes you make a narrative and you like have a plot and like a driving progression and themes that you want to hit.
Yeah.
They said, much like me in middle school, what if we started with a map and went from there?
Diagrams.
And just like me in middle school, they never have come up with a story around it. It's beautiful.
Them.
Some of the best design and best work. Have Mike Del Mundo and Mike Huddleston drawn many pages? The answer is no. They are also getting that money, and I can only be so mad about it.
Bless them all, and I wish that I wish them well, and I hope the book turns out great. X-Men Legacy does have 6 issues here for us, and this is kind of
what we're talking about,
redefining the character after his appearances in the Mike Carey run of X-Men Legacy Volume 1.
Yeah, we've talked about X-Men Legacy in the past, and
yeah.
The idea of it from a high concept was, hey, let's start to phase in and out different characters to be the lead. So it starts as a Charles Xavier book, it moves into a Rogue book, and then it tries to pivot a little bit more, but never really succeeds at not being a Rogue book. And then Mike Costa or whoever jumps in after Carey just gets distracted and doesn't really do much of anything with it. And then they said, no, we got to get back to it. So let's take Legion, who had been a character that Carey was very interested in at the end of his run, and say, let's make him the focus here. Get X-Men Legacy. Well, he's the legacy of Charles Xavier.
It's clever.
Okay. It is clever. It is clever. And they bring in Cy Spurrier to do this, and Tangen Hut, whose art is weird. And if you told me you hated it, we had this conversation with some friends. I said, if you hate it, I believe you and I understand. I don't.
No, it is perfect for this book. And so much so that when Jorge Molina, who is extremely talented, does the issues that, are filling in, it seems a little strange because it's a little too polished for what it is that the story is. So where do we find Legion at the beginning of this series?
Legion is at a Kathmandu style monk monastery for telepaths.
It really does seem that way. And whereas he was relying on a sort of Dr. Nemesis wristwatch to change between his personalities, he now has developed a prison system inside of his head. The
carceral state, always what I want to model
right.
My mental health after.
Yes. And he can, pull a prisoner out of their cage, inject them with his needle fingers in his head, and gain that character's powers, right? So it's a little bit more concrete than it has been in the past. Unfortunately, because of this setup, which is pretty brilliant, I'll give Cy that. It's a very smart premise. Because of this incarceral setup, all of those personalities want to break out of their jail cells and take over Legion's body, which makes for a great premise.
It does make for a very interesting literalization of what he's dealing with. And they have that opportunity when Charles Xavier is killed during Avengers versus X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And then, oops, David's having some feelings and not managing himself well. Does kill everybody at this monastery. The monastery is very weird. It's a very weird setup. I don't know why
it's where
he's
he
there.
was dropped. You know, it's another one of these like, hey, we need to send David off somewhere. And unfortunately,
No, it wasn't. That's the thing. He wasn't there. This is the first time we hear about it.
oh, I know, but it is kind of implied that he's been like sent there, you know, and that he's going to be helped by being there. And you know, much to everybody's delight, he kills them all by accident. So great. Now this storyline you would think would, you know, immediately go into Legion kind of being the bad, but that's not the case for this first 6 issues. Legion's foil throughout this series is Blindfold. And
hey, I got to pause right there. We got to go back to the Kathmandu thing.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, Murhaz, the mystic, the white guy that's teaching him all of the ancient Asian. Do you know when he was created? Because the answer is not 2012, like I had assumed.
Is he like a Dr. Nemesis, you know, Golden Age creation? Who is this guy?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Blanket answer. You got it in one, Adam. He's from Mystic Comics #4 in 1940.
Wow. God bless. I love a deep dive. How fun is that?
I wish it was good, but you know what? Shocking. Great. Whatever. That it makes me like the character more, and I don't like him very much. So that's interesting.
No, I mean you can't really get attached to him because he's not there for very long to begin with. But Legion is not the villain of this arc. I mentioned that Blindfold is sort of like his other half throughout this series, but our villain, at least for the first couple of issues, is a new character who happens to be Blindfold's brother.
Yeah, this is Luca Aldine.
Mm-hmm.
He first appears as some floating eyeballs.
Yes.
Mentioning Blindfold doesn't have eyeballs. Luca does.
He's eyeball guy.
Luca's a racist and a bigot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hates mutants. Is also just generally racist. Like, so much of his dialogue in this is him just being racist, and that sucks.
There sure is some interesting choices being made by Cy Spurrier, because not only is that character definitely bigoted, but that character is going to possess a child. And there are 2 children that are introduced as part of this story. They are, I want to make sure I get their names right. So
Harasu and
Sojobu, Harasu, Tengu, who are both found when Legion encounters a cult of very racist caricatures who are worshiping the mask of Ogun.
Yeah. And here's the thing that's weird. Listen, I understand that in fiction, if a character does a thing, it is not a one-to-one representation of the author's thoughts and feelings.
That is true.
I want to be very clear there. So the fact that Luca is a racist character, and like his point is that he is a bigot, and his bigotry caused like trauma in Ruth, his sister, Blindfold's life. Okay, like I get it. Yep. I think there is a open discussion to be had in general about, okay, well, how do you portray these things in fiction without perpetuating the same racism that you're trying to criticize? I think that is a nuanced and a conversation that doesn't necessarily have a clean answer, and nor am I really the person to get that. So I want to put that just right there. Like, I see what's happening. It's not what I want to read. I get it. It is very weird to juxtapose that with the Pokemon episode of South Park level racist that is the Japanese characters in this story.
Yes, who are all speaking in a very sort of jilted, broken English.
It's that Pokemon episode of South Park.
It's
like
bad.
It's just that.
Yeah.
And it's played for humor. And I'm
Yeah.
you understand the disconnect, Sai. Like,
Yeah.
you can't have a character being racist and then do a racist character because it really screws up your whole point.
Yeah.
It really does.
Definitely hard to sell the bigotry is bad when you are doing a bigotry.
I had forgotten about this stuff and I was truly shocked. Go back. It's like issue 3 or something. Go back and check, folks. If you don't believe us, it's like shocking. Like this, we weren't doing this in 2012. We kind of had put the kibosh on it.
I had not read this in a significant amount of time. And I was reading this on my iPad on a break at my daughter's dance competition. So I'm sitting in a public auditorium with a whole bunch of people around me and I gasped. I was like, oh, he did what? Because I had forgotten that this is actually part of the story. So that's no
really
good.
Weird.
No good.
That's not even getting into the Ogun and the general fetishization of its Japanese culture. And fine. It's a story with the ninja stuff. Yes, all of that has challenges as well.
Sure.
It does get into, a thing of then Legion saying, okay, well, I'm going to rescue these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And the X-Men coming and say, they should go to our school. And he's like, actually, I think X-Men that you're going to treat me bad and you're going to treat these kids bad.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be called Legion. They keep calling him that.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure that was like, I don't know where, now I'd have to go back to see that, but it does remind me of the current run of New Mutants where they talk about No Girl and like, oh, everyone's so bad for calling her No Girl. It's like, okay, that was her, like,
yeah,
that was just, there's a conceit to superhero stories.
Right.
And if you're like, oh, that was a terrible thing. Okay, but that's not what it was presented as at the time, and you're going back, and it makes for a weird argument.
Yeah. So anyway, because Eyeball Boy, because of Blindfold's brother inhabiting
Luca,
the little boy, there's a battle at the Jean Grey school, and eventually Legion and Blindfold prevail in stopping him, but it results in the little boy dying. Right?
Yeah. Luca does kill a child here. He's not good.
Yeah.
Also, the Japanese children have yin-yang powers. That's a weird choice.
Also very strange. There's a couple of choices here, right? With the origamist and things like that. But that's
okay. The origamist awesome. Being one of his powers to fold dimensions.
That's pretty dope.
I think that rules. That rules.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
Some of the powers are interesting. And I think Cy Spurrier, wants to explore what you can do with, okay, he's all powerful and he can't control his powers and all of his powers are kind of weird.
Yes. And they're all fighting. That is the fun conceit of the character, right? Is that not only can he control it, but they're all fighting to take control. So when I'm reading this, that's the premise that I think sticks. That's the premise that guides the rest of the book. I think it's more interesting than some of the things that happen outside of his head. And that's generally my take on this first arc.
Well, he tries to do it as a criticism of Xavier's dream and Xavierism and all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a problem I have with a lot of Cy Spurrier's writing in general. And in a lot of stuff, I like Cy Spurrier. I'm not a huge fan of what he's currently doing on the Krakoa stuff, but different strokes, but I feel like Cy gets on a pedestal and says, this is the way things should be, or at least has a character do that. And I'm not sure whether it's the space that you have in a comic to make a big, grand thesis-y speech or anything, but it doesn't always come through. And like in this case, I feel like the X-Men are kind of Flanderized in a weird way. Like they are written so that Legion is right and not written in such a way that you've read other X-Men comics. Right. They are written in such a way that someone takes the joke, it's Xavier's paramilitary school for child soldiers, and says, what if there was no nuance to that and we weren't accepting the conceits of the medium?
Yeah.
And I roll my eyes. I'm like, okay, I get what you're doing, but you're doing it in a place where you're breaking the thing if you look at it too hard.
No, you're absolutely right. So why don't we take a stab at ranking this? Because we actually have ranked a couple other things from this book.
Yeah, we're kind of being critical to this because I do think that the run gets to a oddly bad start compared to where it ends, and I like the story of Legion coming into his own and his level of self-acceptance and wanting to have his own agency and choose his own future. I feel like that works a lot better to me than the criticism of the structure of the X-Men that this first arc becomes. And we'll get into that because we do have this big old list, Adam. You are absolutely right.
Big old list.
It's a big old list of all of the X-Men stories that have ever been or ever will be, pending us actually putting them all on this list. Ranked from best to worst. We have 759 stories while we're on that road, that long old road to 800. With the number one story being The House of X, The Powers of 10, the 100th story being Ultimate X-Men World Tour, the 200th story being Uncanny X-Men Volume 3, Number 14, Morph, number 300 being the seminal Glob Loves Man Kills from Old Man Logan,
Nice.
400 being Death Whale from Generation X. That's that time they fought Omega Red, that one. X-Men Regenesis one-shots at 500, Nova number 22, where Nova from Nova goes trick-or-treating with the Jean Grey School kids. That's at 600. Number 700 is Uncanny X-Men 442 to 443 of Darkest Nights. And you know the Draco. It's at that bottom of that list. It's 759.
So many stories.
Legacy on here.
So up at 62, we have X-Men Legacy 300, which is the Forget Me Not one shot. This is definitely not as good as that.
Yeah, no, we're not in the top because we've got a couple of X-Men Legacy stories doing well. We do have at 224 X-Men Legacy 10 to 12 Invasive Exotic. That is the Pills / Red Skull story.
That one's definitely better than this. But I think this might be better than at 342, the next arc, which is Hope and Glory, which
really?
Oh, really? You think Hope and Glory is better?
I think Hope and Glory is its big flaw is that I have to read it in 2023 and I'm now cynical and I don't believe that a bunch of mutants doing good on television would save the world, actually.
Yeah. See, I think that's why I think this particular first arc is better, because it introduces all of the premises that really do work for the rest of the series. And that
does it. It introduces the mental prison. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
I would say that the rest of the stuff it introduces, the stuff with Luca, the stuff with the kids, is actually some of the weakest in terms of the concepts in the series.
Okay.
I think the mental prison is great, and I want to spend more time there. Like, it's an awesome setting.
I do think we're in the right realm here, though. Like,
I do too.
I'm looking down at like 366's Trial of Gambit. I think this is better than that. So
350 is Soul Possessions.
Yeah.
From X-Men 3rd. Why is that a 350? Because Connor was on the episode when we ranked it. Okay.
It's also kind of fun. I mean, that's some good
I had
stuff
290. I had 290 guys arguing against me. That makes sense.
So
I don't know. I think this is kind of better than Soul Possession, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we're right here in the 340s. So where's it going to go?
Is it better or worse than Uncanny X-Men 300, a comic that oddly is also a criticism of Xavierism?
I'm going to say it's better than that, but not as good as X-Men Black Mojo 1 at 344.
X-Men Black Mojo number 1, I think fundamentally does not get Mojo the way it should, but it does fundamentally get Glob Herman, and one of these things is more important to me than the other.
That's the important part. All right, so we're going to kind of work our way back through time as we get through this episode, and we're going to go back now to X-Men Legacy Volume 1. What is this arc, Zach?
This is called Lost Legions.
We lost our legions.
We did lose our legions. It's X-Men Legacy 250 to 253.
I feel like if I had some legions, I would want to lose them. You know, just medically speaking.
The thing about legions is that they are many. So if you lose one or two, it shouldn't be a big issue. But what this comic posits, and this comic is, of course, by Mike Carey, art by Koi Pham for the majority of it. Steve Kurth does a little bit as well. What this arc posits is, what if losing your legions was bad?
Oh, it's a big deal because sometimes they'll just take over a European capital.
So Legion has his magical wristwatch, his Ben 10 watch.
It really is. It's a Ben 10 watch.
Listen, Ben 10, created by a bunch of comics dudes, the Man of Actions. It's just Dial H for Hero.
Sure.
So it's all circular.
Yes. Yep.
But Legion's got his Ben 10 watch.
And this is just after Age of X. So everybody is still sort of reeling from the alternate reality.
They're reeling from it. They're trying to understand it. And we have a new team here, pretty much.
Yes, we do.
Because the team had been, I don't know if it's hard to say there was really ever a team in X-Men Legacy. It just kind of, but there's characters that kept popping up. And you got you got Rogue, her boyfriend Magneto.
Yep.
Mike Carey really tried to sell that one. I get it, but
it's kind of works. I mean, it depends.
I think Rogue and Magneto is an excellent ship for Age of Apocalypse because it's so buck wild anywhere else, and I cannot wrap my mind around it.
I never get it behind it in the 616, but
it's just like I'm like them. Gambit's also here, which is great because he's not happy about Rogue and Magneto either.
Nope.
Frenzy's here, and Carrie is starting to give her the kind of development that he kicks off.
Yes.
And has turned her into a character that like we need more of in comics. Like, I like Joanna Cargill. I think her only issue from really breaking through is that her powers are just I'm strong.
Yeah, I can punch stuff.
And she doesn't have a great visual identity beyond that for comics. I think that's the one thing that's holding her back versus some others. But I love her.
Great personality, though. You know,
great personality. You can't say great personality to someone; they get so mad.
I would never say that to Frenzy.
There's very little I would say to Frenzy. I'd be afraid I would be punched in the face.
Yes, yeah. Throughout this arc, Gambit is kind of teasing her about Cyclops because the two of them, you know, Cyclops and Frenzy were a married couple in the Age of X. This doesn't go over well.
Anyway, Legion and Professor X are also
here. So Professor X is sending some of this team out so that they can find, when Age of X ended, some of Legion's personalities got loose and physically manifested themselves across the globe, and they're causing some havoc.
Nope, that's a different guy. They're causing some chaos. Nope, that's a different guy too. They're causing
mayhem.
They're causing some. I listen. I didn't read every '90s comic, but I'm 100% sure that's also a dude.
Pick a word.
They're causing some amount of distress in the world.
Yes, it's true. Unfortunately, these characters that offshoot from Legion are really not very interesting. Unfortunately, no.
So you have two extremes. You have the Claremont Sienkiewicz, like it's just dudes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You have the Claremont Sienkiewicz, it's just dudes on one side, and you got the Cy Spurrier, we're gonna get weird.
Yep.
And like have concepts on the other side. And Mike Carey's like right in the middle where he wants it to be weird and he doesn't know how weird he can really take it.
Yeah. So we have Chain /1A, who is essentially Multiple Man, right? Except he can manifest weapons. You have Susan in Sunshine, who is a little girl who has like emotional control over other people, unless you make her sad, which, you know, nobody wants to make a little girl sad. And then you have Styx, who is basically just like a gross, like skinless zombie dude who
he's a zombie boy.
Yeah. And so each one of, it's really just Chain and Styx, but Styx is kind of running the other two. And wait, there's one more. Who's the guy with the 3D hands?
Bleeding Image.
Yeah, Bleeding Image. He's
or Endgame. Which one is? I don't know. I'm looking these up on.
There's a couple of them. I don't think I said them all.
No, Bleeding Image is the voodoo doll boy.
Oh,
yeah. Endgame's the
Time Sync.
That's it. Endgame's the Sentinel.
Yes. Endgame is the one that Styx like awakens at the end of this, right?
Yeah. it doesn't matter who these people are. That's the beauty.
No, unfortunately, it is very bland. The best part of these issues is the character interactions between, like I just said, you've got weird character drama between Rogue and Magneto, Gambit and Frenzy. Everybody's sort of on edge with Legion, and Legion is very superhero-y here. He's sort of muscular. He's got his wristwatch. He's ready to, fight and do battle like a.
He's wanting to be, just like Frenzy, he's wanting to be the version of himself that was in the Age of X.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it is an odd portrayal of this character who is typically not, acting in that vein.
I do understand the direction and the impulse to push that way. I don't think it's necessarily a bad concept. I think execution wise, it doesn't work out well. And this is an issue all throughout the Legacy run, specifically, is that Carey does a great job with the character beats, does a great job with just the interactions and the interpersonal stuff, and the action and the superhero-y stuff that he has to have because it's a book with the word X-Men on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's forced to do that and is not able to take that to any successful level, which is kind of weird and wild to me, because a book like his adjectiveless X-Men run really is more of a like action forward book and works for it.
Yeah.
And maybe part of it's the artist that he has on this versus that, because on that adjectiveless he had Chris Bachalo and Humberto Ramos.
Yeah.
Those are action guys, where Koi Fam is Koi Fam and not my favorite artist.
Well, Koi is doing something that's much more static,
Yes.
and it's much more of just a house style. Like, for example, when they go into Styx's underground lair, there are
the
these
catacombs in Perry.
Yeah, there are these visions of tentacles and naked writhing bodies, and it's all, it's supposed to be sort of I don't know, like horror movie, but it's kind of bland, and
I feel nothing for it.
Right. So I think this entire arc, because that they're going to defeat Legion's personalities, that they're going to defeat this giant like robot that pops up at the end, which is an odd manifestation, but it's fine. And everything just kind of goes back the way it is, and it's just okay.
Mike Carey, by the end of his Legacy run, like, he was running out of steam.
Yeah, I mean, he's also really leaning into Rogue. That he likes Rogue when this story is another example of Rogue being the engine for solving the crisis at the end of this story, right? Like,
she was the protagonist of the book.
Yes. Yeah.
But yes, it's very much a Rogue can do anything thing. At a certain point, it's like, okay, Mike, I get it, but it does make it weird for this team, ostensibly team book.
Yeah, there is a backup story in one of the issues that also has Rogue working with Rachel's sort of ghost from across the cosmos, like an echo, and that leads into the next arc when they all end up in space,
which is the last arc that Carey does.
Yeah. Yep. So I think we both agree this is not as good as what we just read with the Spurrier arc.
It's not.
No, it's very bland.
Again, I like Mike Carey a lot. This arc isn't it.
No, it should. There, like I said, some okay character moments, but I just don't think this really has it.
Bud's got to cash his paycheck so he can do his novels. Want me to tell you a dirty little secret, Adam?
Sure.
You know how I've become a reading person in the last couple of years?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I've only quit a book by one author.
Oh, no.
That was by Mike Carey.
Oh, that makes me sad.
I started reading it and I was like, oh, no, this is like, I'm going to world build a sci-fi and it's going to feel like Hunger Games-y, and it's like going to replace the word birthday with something else, but just to like find and replace the word birthday with something else. I'm like, I'm out.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mike. I love you. It's not what I needed at the time. I was like, nope, this one's going back to the library.
I'm sorry. So I've
I
highlighted.
like my character. I've got to be so clear.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, Supernova's definitely one of our faves. That's a real fun one. But I do think we're probably in the 500s here.
What's number 500 right now? What's number 500 right now? Okay, wait. 501 is Extraordinary X-Men 1 through 5.
I have that as 502. Am I wrong?
That's 502. I'm just bad at looking at numbers.
Oh, okay. I'm just
Because 509 you have highlighted Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire.
Yeah.
I think this is better than that.
okay. All right.
It's shorter. It's only 3 issues here, bud. 4 issues.
Is it better than Giant Size Fantastic Four Volume 1, Number 4, with the introduction of Multiple Man and the Thing trying to get to his football game on a train?
Look, anyone can write 3 good pages of the Thing, and it'll make a comic pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
How much Fantastic Four exists that people like because someone wrote the Thing enjoyable for a couple of pages.
Yeah. Is this better than the introduction of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, X-Men 4
Again.
and 5?
Not the first issue, definitely the second issue of that.
So what do you think?
I would put it actually right below Regenesis, right above Extraordinary X-Men 1 through 5.
All right. So this is going to be our new 502.
Let's make it 502. Let's do that.
Yeah. Legion's lost. And apparently we found him.
And you know what? Speaking of guys who definitely kind of ran out of steam at the end, and we don't really talk about it out of respect for the rest of their work.
Oh, here we go.
It's time for the Muir Island saga, or at least the start of it. We're talking about Uncanny X-Men 254 to 255. The all new, all different. Here we go again.
Boy.
It's the Muir Island X-Men, and what a cast of characters that Chris Claremont has assembled during the post-Outback era.
It is so interesting that Chris was so dedicated to making sure that the X-Men were not in X-Men anymore, right? Like, he's so dedicated to this idea that, especially after the Aussie era, that everybody's going to split up and we're not going to see this team together for years. And, I know that there was tension, right? Because you have Jim Lee, who eventually wrests control here with Bob Harris, because both of them want the team to get back together. And it's just funny how adamantly opposed to that the architect of X-Men was, that he didn't want to write X-Men.
So I think there's 2 things that need to be in the forefront when we consider this specific era of X-Men. One, the book was double shipping at this point. So while if you're rereading it, you're looking like, oh, this is going on for a spell. In actual publication, which at the time was way more of the focus than it was today, where trades and the longevity of a thing is probably a bit more important than how it reads month to month. It read a lot faster than you would think.
Oh yeah. Yep.
The other thing is, I don't dislike the concept of splitting up the X-Men. I think the execution maybe could be better. I think maybe don't make it this weird Shadow King story that you've been trying to tell for 40 years, Chris. No one's going to care. No one cares about the Shadow King.
I care about the Shadow King, and I think
Are you fascinated by the Shadow King?
Okay,
do you care about the Shadow King the way I care about Nate Gray, the X-Man?
Yes, because you also, that's like a morbid fascination for you, I think.
Yeah, I don't think Nate Gray's good. I do have a framed picture of him.
Yeah, it's not like your love of Maggot. You know what I mean? It's a different kind of love.
Maggot, right? Who I legitimately think is good.
Yeah. But I think that the double shipping of this book, right? So it's coming out every other week, is the biggest impediment to what's going on here, because the storytelling is super rushed and the art is super rushed. So Silvestri, obviously one of our most talented artists from this era, is just trying his best to keep up. And you can tell that in some spots, the inker Mark Green Dan Green, is doing some of the lifting here. And, this is just, we're only talking about 2 issues here. Did we say that? 254?
Yeah, we said 254, 255.
And
we covered 253 in a different episode because, again, all of the stories in this era kind of blend together.
Yes. So who exactly are now Jim Lee does the cover for 254. Who exactly are the Muir Island X-Men that we get treated here to before the Reavers attack and this team? That's it.
So to be clear, there aren't really Muir Island X-Men in so much as some people were on Muir Island and eventually they got X-Men costumes.
Right.
The people who are on the cover are Dr. Moira McTaggart,
Mhm.
Banshee Polaris, which Banshee's not been in the book for almost a decade.
Pretty long time. He's back.
Polaris, who was people don't really realize this in the grand scheme of things. 1989, Polaris was barely a character.
Yeah, and she's
not even a character. She's not even a team member in the 60s.
No,
that's the thing.
When she comes back, right after the Brood arc, she comes back here and she's been radically transformed. Right now,
she's big Polaris now,
right? And she's got kind of like spiky hair. Because I'm sorry, I mentioned the Brood arc. Obviously, there's the Malice stuff after that, right? So now she's been freed from Malice, but there's also
Zaladane stuff has just happened.
Yes, yeah. So she looks weird.
Big Polaris, love a big Polaris.
Who else we got?
We got Legion. We got Amanda Sefton.
Weird.
We got Brigadier Sandy Stewart.
Yes.
It's Allison Stewart.
Tom Corsi.
Tom Corsi and Sharon Friedlander are here.
Of course.
And Sunder is on the cover, but Sunder gets killed very quickly.
Yeah, because...
Rest in peace, guy who they definitely might have thought they were doing a strong guy thing and then forgot.
Yeah, probably for the best. So the plot is very simple. And that is that the Reavers have decided to attack Muir Island. Freedom Force, in its current incarnation, is also going to stop by to try and stop this from happening. And basically, it's not great. Like, lots of people get shot. Some people die. Destiny dies.
So Sunder gets killed.
Yep.
The Reavers attack. Stonewall from Freedom Force is killed. Destiny is not killed by the Reavers, but she is killed in a thing that we'll get to. It's like a big loss for the X-Men. Forge does eventually come in and join the group after essentially getting Freedom Force to come and rescue them, which is, I think the Freedom Force stuff is probably the best of all this, and maybe it's because these are characters and specifically character dynamics and relationships that the book has actually cared about before this point.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas even today, Forge and Banshee are like co-workers. They're guys who work together. That's it. They aren't like buddies. They aren't lifting together.
Well, this is the beginning of that sort of partnership between the two of them, right? Because
the weird time when they were like, we're the only...
Yeah.
Are we like the only X-Men?
We're going to go...
We're like around?
Yeah, we're going to go and we're going to find the rest of the X-Men, right? Which is kind of where the book goes.
We're going to find the real X-Men here because we're sure not doing it.
Right. Let me tell you what a joy it is to see Blob's butt like just pop out of the sky and fall to the ground on top of some Reavers. It's just great.
It's great. The Freedom Force stuff is fun. Avalanche and Pyro and Blob. All our friends.
Yes.
They're doing stuff. Mystique's mad. Her and Destiny. Here's the thing. When I wore a younger man's clothes, I did not pick up that Destiny and Mystique were lovers.
Ah, okay. Mm-hmm.
I was very conservative Christian schoolboy. Wasn't looking. Missed the signs.
So when Rogue had two mommies in the classic X-Men backup story.
I didn't read classic X-Men until very recently, to be fair.
Oh, okay.
Like, comparatively, I read all of classic X-Men after we started this podcast.
Fair.
It wasn't collected very well.
That's true.
Reading this, I feel like I should have done a little bit better job reading these comics and understanding them, because boy, is Claremont being pretty overt about these two women who love each other a lot.
Oh, yeah. No, there is no confusion whatsoever. And if anything might be confusing, it's just that the storytelling here, because of the rushed artwork, because of the
Right.
rushed script, it doesn't have the emotional impact that it probably should. You know, it's implied that Legion kills Destiny, right?
Mhm.
But it's not told in any sort of suspenseful or exciting way. It just sort of happens.
Yeah.
You know,
And
go
it
ahead.
all builds up with, it's all part of Claremont's build up for the Muir Island saga.
Yeah.
And we were talking before this recording started about how, it is in some people's mind a shame that Claremont never really got to tell his big Shadow King Muir Island story that he wanted to. And my counter to that is, okay, but did you read the parts that he did write?
Because it's already a mess.
It is some of the stuff that he did write is some of the weakest in his run. And I feel like this whole double shipping no team era is probably one of the most uneven eras of X-Men. Definitely the most uneven of Claremont's, main tenure, where it's alternating between some really cool and engaging stories, and then also whatever he's doing with the Shadow King.
Yeah, I mean, we also have to put this into context that this is right before Jim Lee is going to take over and alternate with Silvestri, and we get that 3-issue arc of Psylocke's introduction in her new body. And then, we're off to the races. It is the 90s as soon as that happens. So
Yeah.
This really does feel a little last gasp. So unfortunately, I think, even reading this for the first time, I remember it sort of being anticlimactic. I wanted more out of it.
But the not team era literally just goes from like December of, well, I guess if you count, where do you count that starting at?
When they go through Siege Perilous, I guess.
Well,
right?
but I would almost say it starts at 246, which is right after the Boys' Night and Ladies' Night issues.
Okay.
Because the team slowly dies off for 5 issues.
Yeah.
And then it goes into, yeah.
Yeah, I still feel like that's the end of the Aussie era. You know what I mean? And then
and again, the lines are quite blurred. I've blurred because like we even had in the spreadsheet 253. It was like, okay, did we already cover this? Is this part of the Wolverine's Crucified arc, or is this part of the Muir Island stuff?
Yeah. Yep.
And heck, you get a bunch of stuff in this about Matsuo Soriyama and everything that leads into the Mandarin and Psylocke body swap stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, that whole era, like from here, it's only up until October of 90. It's less than a year. It's just a lot of issues in between.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
just a long year.
Probably just feels longer. And I think this is probably going to be somewhere around the Muir Island saga on our list.
This is better than the Muir Island saga.
I would agree, but I don't think it's going to be that much higher. We have that down at 544 on our list.
Okay, well then it brings up an excellent point. Is this better than X-Men : The End : Men and X-Men : Part 3?
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
Or Book 3, excuse me.
Yeah. No, it is. But I don't know if it's better than Enemy of the State at 529.
It's not better than Enemy of the State.
I don't think
Here's the thing. Enemy of the State got some good John art.
Is it better than that time Professor X was the Juggernaut and What If? I feel like it has to be, right? I mean, there's just
it is.
Little.
I got to double check what Christmas issue this is, but I feel like almost any Christmas comic is better than this.
Isn't that the Colossus Ghost issue?
No, this is not the Colossus Ghost issue. This is Chris Claremont and Salvador Larroca doing a weird one-off because because Chuck Austin's run ended.
This is better than that.
Is it?
Yeah.
That has Beast in a Santa costume.
I know, but this is better. This does have Destiny's death and that reaction to Mystique. So 530.
Okay, hold on. Mystique. I'm not getting into it.
Did we mention that Legion was in that story?
Legion kills Destiny. Y'all know. You understand. You're listening to this podcast. You know.
Yes.
You know what happens here, right? Legion kills Destiny.
Yes. Well,
he's
he
possessed-
starts as a defensive status as an X-Men, but then he decides that killing people is fun. Let's walk around and do that.
And it wasn't the Shadow King. It was Jack Wayne who did that.
I don't know.
And Destiny knew because she's Destiny and she went to her death so that Forge and Mystique could grow closer because it would be important to saving the world. A plot that never really pays off, even though they spend a huge amount of time, except for until the part in Inferno where John Hickman's like, actually, we're going to have that chip finally get cashed in, and Forge is going to help them uncover the Moira stuff.
Yep. Oh boy. Boy does his reading.
At some point, we're going to do Inferno 2 Electric Boogaloo and see how that goes.
I like it.
I mean, I think the answer is it's not the ending that people wanted with just a bow on everything that Jonathan Hickman did. But what Jonathan Hickman did was set up a status quo and put a lot of thought into that and said, okay, and then this is kind of the beats if we wanted to go that way, but also we're in a collaborative environment and not everything goes that way. It turns out first idea, not always best idea.
He'll be back.
First idea, best idea. Yeah. Actually, no. I 100% believe that Marvel will throw money his way and he'll eventually do an X-Men thing again. Like that's not actually that crazy because
they will.
Just think, if the answer is Marvel just needs to pay this man, then they're going to make a lot of money by saying, by the way, Jonathan Hickman's coming back and doing 6 issues of X-Men. That's going to sell a few comics.
I think so. Solid episode.
But we got at least a solid 2 years.
Oh, that's not happening anytime soon. No. They gotta let him write Ultimates or whatever.
Adam, did you see it's going to have data pages?
Yeah, that was part of the pitch. Wasn't that part of the solicit?
It was part of the solicit. And here's the thing. I want to be clear because I was part of the data pages are great hype, and I don't disagree that they're great. They are a tool to be used, just like saying, also, this is going to be in color.
Yes.
Y'all, that it's going to have a letters column. I don't care. That's not the selling point for me is that Jonathan Hickman loves graphic design. I think it's very funny. Don't put it in the solicit.
Promise.
How do we close out this stupid podcast?
I think we usually ask each other what's up, but as of recording this, Comics XF is in sort of like a weird place. So hopefully it's back by the time.
Guys, if it's not up, folks, if it's not up by this time, by the time you hear this, someone please personally reach out because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm very scared. It involves scripts and malware, apparently. The website's broken before. This is the most broken it's been.
Yeah. I have faith in you, buddy.
So anyway, Adam, you actually do have something to announce to people.
Oh, so
what are you doing?
Yeah, I am now starting my print store on InPrint, which is inprnt.com. If you follow me on either Instagram at adam.rec or Twitter at Arthur Stacy, you've probably seen me link to this, but for years, people have been asking for prints of my artwork. And so I am slowly uploading those so that if anybody wants them and you want a little framed picture of the Exterminators or Wolverine or Jean and Scott or whatever, I promise more art will be coming up, but go take a look. Maybe get something.
Listen, the moment that I actually sit down and have a credit card in front of me, I'm going to buy one. I'm waiting for me to remember it, not while I'm on the toilet looking at Instagram. Like, oh yeah, Adam's got that store. I got to go to it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your support. And
Adam, I've made this joke to you before, is that I am sitting in a room chock-a-block with art. None of which by my very good art friend, Adam.
See, this is everybody's opportunity. What do you got going on? Anything?
No.
Great.
I'm reading multiple books right now. That's it.
That's something. What are we doing next week? You have such a big smile on your face.
Every time we do it, we waited so long. We waited so long to do 2099 that I'm excited that we're doing even more 2099.
Yes. Back to the Future.
Back to the Future 2. I was going to say the subtitle, but those movies did not have them.
Nope.
It's your kids, Marty. We got to do something about your kids. That was like if Strong Bad was doing a Doc Samson. That's not his name.
What?
Dr. DeLorean? I don't know.
I'm sorry, I can't catch my breath.
You think I'm joking? I do not know the name of the doctor in Back to the Future.
Emmett Brown, Dr. Emmett Brown.
Okay. I believe you, Adam. Until then, folks. Oh, thank you to Sukasari 1203 Patreon. Go do it. Until you do the Patreon, folks, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!